Welcome to the podcast. I'm Daniel Farrand, owner of the company Horns of Odin. As always, before we jump into the show, I do have to plug our Patreon. I know I say it every single week, but it is how we keep the lights on. It's how we literally keep the podcast going. So if you do want to support the show, head over to Patreon/Nordic Mythology Podcast. The biggest incentive is the bonus episode you get every single week, and that comes in the form of a Q&A that we do with our guests right after the main show. So we sit down and we let the patrons ask their own questions. And a lot of the time, there are questions that I've missed. They tend to be a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more fun. And they're that bumper part to an episode. So if you like one of the shows we've done in the past, the chances are there will be that extension to it. And you get the whole back catalogue when you sign up to Patreon as well. It's not just going forward. It's literally everything we've done prior. So at this point, there are years of bonus episodes. So tons of material to sink your teeth into. If you can't support financially, then a 5-star rating, positive review wherever you get your podcasts really does help. It helps us jump up in the charts and helps new people discover. With that said, let's jump into today's episode. I'm very excited to do this. It's a topic that we've not covered. It's an item that I didn't even know existed until I booked this, which I guess is quite embarrassing, but also amazing that we get to talk about it. So my guest today is Rebeca Franco Valle. Rebeca is an art historian and archaeologist specializing in Viking age art and material culture. She was a PhD research fellow at the Department of Archaeology, Cultural Studies, and Religion at the University of Bergen. I need to put my teeth in today. Rebeca, thank you for coming and joining us. Yeah. How are you first and foremost? Then we'll get into the topic.
Yeah, hi. Well, I'm good. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here today. Yeah, ready to start.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the San Isidoro box. I'm sure you're pronouncing much better than I do.
That was very good. San Isidoro box. Yeah.
So yeah, as I said in the intro, this was an item that I didn't even know existed. I've been doing this podcast for I don't know how many years now, but this is episode 243, 44, something like that. And this amazing little container has never kind of crossed my path, which is, I think, remarkable, saying how much of a stunning piece it is.
Yeah, it is quite a secret, or we are not trying to be a secret, but we are not trying to keep it as a secret, but it has been, quite unknown. It was actually in the 90s when it was brought forward in the international community and connected with the more international scene of Viking art. But before that, it was only known within Spain, and it was really not known what sort of style or thing this small box was, because you have to imagine this box is part of a huge collection of medieval jewels that have been stored in this church in San Isidoro for centuries. So it was just one of these very exotic things stored there. Nobody knew how or why it arrived there.
Was it on show or on display? Or was it just kept as part of the churches or treasures?
Historically, it was stored as part of the relics. We don't really know how exactly, but it was probably belonging to the big chunk of treasures kept in the church that were not normally shown. But since the museum, the church became or started to have a part of a museum, it was exposed to the public, and that's how the historians discovered it in a visit to the church, very random. It was Eduardo Morales Romero who went there, and he knew about Viking art, and he's a historian, and he saw it in display, and he immediately recognized it as something, Scandinavian.
Wow.
But it was exposed at least in the 90s.
Oh, wow. What an interesting story. I wonder how much other pieces are hidden within the churches, or maybe just not. Because again, I so naively think this, and I've said this so many times on the podcast in the past. from not coming from a scholarly background, just being, a normal person interested in all of this, I very naively just assumed that there was this huge catalog for all items discovered ever, and they'd all kind of just been tagged with something, and everybody could find them, and they were really easy to locate. So it's so interesting that even in the 90s, there's this little container that just by chance, somebody who
Yeah,
knows what it is can walk past and go, "Oh, do you know what you've got there?"
yeah, it was really like that. And yeah, and this it keeps on happening from time to time. So it's not something that it was happening in the 90s or in the 50s and the 60s. Um, but yeah, you never know where you're gonna find the next sensation.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be loads hidden in churches all over. Okay, so we have this little container. I call it a box, but I guess it's not a box. It's more of a little cylinder.
Yeah, it's a container of some sort. It's not really because the work is an open work, so it cannot really contain things. It has small holes, so it cannot really contain grain or water or something like that. But it has a lid that opens and closes, so it's technically a very small box of some sort.
Okay, so yeah, let's start right at the beginning, I guess, for people who have no idea what this little box is, what it looks like. I'm going to pull a picture up now for people to see. So this will be, podcasts tend to be more of an audio format, but for anybody that is just listening, when this releases, you can just go over onto our YouTube and watch the episode on there, and you'll be able to see the visuals that come along with it, or just Google the San Isidoro box and you'll get an idea of what we're talking about, because it is a stunning little piece. So how big is the container? Let's start there.
It's about 4 centimeters high and 3 centimeters in diameter. So it's really, really small.
That, that's incredibly small for the amount of detail that is that's on there. And can you describe what is it made out of?
It is apparently it is made of deer antler, probably red deer antler, for how it looks like. This is the analysis of a zoologist looking at it. That uh, just by the looks, it looks like red deer antler because it's a very cylindrical piece of antler. There has been other people suggesting that it was perhaps ivory or walrus ivory more concretely, or reindeer antler, but there is not really good reasons to believe that is any of these other materials because of the shape it has and
Mm-hmm.
because it is hollow. Ivory wouldn't have the texture this small box has inside.
There you go. Hopefully you can see that now.
Yeah, there it is. So you can see it's a very, very detailed um, piece of art, and it is very, very minutious. All the small decorations and
Mm-hmm.
such. It is one of the most elaborate. I can say it safely. I think it's one of the most elaborated and well crafted pieces of Viking art of the world. I could say
Mm-hmm.
because of the level of mastership that there is in the work.
Mm-hmm. It's
So
absolutely stunning. So you said it's 3.5 centimeters tall,
it's 4 centimeters
four
tall,
centimeters tall. So
and
it's
the
less than two
diameter is
inches.
yeah,
But
uh,
the
2 inches. Yeah, I think it's about that.
yes, I think 2 inches are roughly about 5 centimeters. So it's smaller than 2 inches, maybe like an inch and three quarters, something like that. That is tiny for the amount of detail that is
Yeah,
on there. So all these gaps that we see in between, they're holes.
yeah, that's open work. So it is it just you can see what is inside or whatever that was inside the box. You could see it through these small holes.
Hmm.
It's open work,
And
and
is that
also
is that the lid kind of on the bottom? Is this upside down? here?
Yeah, exactly. It's a lid which is just open and laying flat. Um, and then it has the other lid, but that one you cannot open it. This is just fixed with these small nails.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh,
so yeah, this
fascinating.
is how it looks. There are also some reasons to believe that the lids were added to the bone cylinder at a different moment, so a bit later.
Mm-hmm.
And this is because the artistic style of the lids is not exactly the same as the one we can see in the open work in the antler. It is much less elaborated and a bit more clumsy, to say it in some way. And there is certain wear marks in the cylinder that also um, indicate that this cylinder changed of function at some point during history, because now we can see in the if we put the picture again,
Okay, yeah, sure.
if you can I can point to some details that do not make sense in the current state of the box now. So for example, you can see in the spiral that is right in the front, a little bit
Mm-hmm.
below it, there is like a small hole, like a very tiny hole there.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
And that was there are several of them all around the rim of the box, and those were nailing something inside the box. We don't
Mm-hmm.
know what or how or why, but they don't function for anything now in the box. And instead, it has this other lid, which is probably a later addition in a later style as well, artistic style. And the lid also has other holes that do not match with neither this hole nor the 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 open lid function. Now it was also nailed fixed. So this box has been modified several times, not only once or twice
Mm-hmm.
throughout history.
Wow.
And we
Okay.
don't really know what it was originally. We can only say that at some point it became this little container for whatever it
Right.
was.
Okay.
But it
Wonderful.
was probably something like my guess is that it was probably something attached to a handler of something like a staff or something like that that went through the whole thing. It
Oh, okay.
could be a bishop staff, could be something else, or a knife.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you think it probably didn't start out as a box to hold something more like, uh, yeah, I guess you have those small little, I don't know what the technical name for them is. Like you say on a staff where you have like little rings that would be decorative on there.
Yeah, uh, it would. Yeah, I can imagine it being part of a very decorated bishop staff or something like that with
Mm-hmm.
other precious work on it, and this was nailed to it. So these small holes in the sides would keep it in place wherever it was.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So, but for those who don't know, where was this found? Where is San Isidoro?
So the place where it was found, it is a church and a monastery and a collegiata. I don't know the term for that in English. It's a basilica that has been in the city of Leon. It is in the city of Leon in northwest Spain. And this city is historically one of the most relevant places in Spain because it was capital of the Kingdom of Leon. And this kingdom was the most important kingdom of the Iberian Peninsula during the Reconquista period.
Mm-hmm.
And this Reconquista period is when the Christian kingdoms of the north of Spain battle against the Muslims in the south, and this lasted for about 700 years and so forth. And Leon was one of the most important kingdoms during this period, and it was also the seat of the kings of Leon. And this church was the royal pantheon for the kings of this dynasty during this time period. So what we find in this church is a royal state, to say it in some way, royal pantheon, and also it was the place of collection of many relics as I mentioned earlier,
Mm-hmm.
coming from the whole Christian wall and beyond that as well. We also find here caliphate ivory. We also find things from Greece and from Italy. It is a collection of exotic and also local things produced locally.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a collection of of many of these presents that were given to the royals, and also their presents brought afterwards or during also by many people, pilgrims going through the city, and people just making offerings, and other nobility also giving presents to this church and so forth. But the place
Mm-hmm.
was a real a very important center back in the Middle Ages, and also most specifically in the 11th century, when perhaps this box also arrived to the place.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the few things that we can know by looking at this box as well, and by comparing it with the other Viking Age art and other the examples that we have from Scandinavia, is the artistic style in which it is made. And this is a style that is it's halfway between the Mamen and Ringerike styles, which are
Mm-hmm.
two of the styles of the Vikings of the Viking Age, and these
Yeah.
were produced from the 950 circa up to the 1030 AD. So we know that this box was made somewhere at the beginning of the 11th century, or very late in the 10th century.
Okay.
Exactly
So
when the city of Leon was a very important place as well.
do we assume that this was made elsewhere? Is it possible that it? Well, I'm guessing it would have been made in somewhere in Scandinavia and then brought down rather than being made in Spain itself.
Yeah, yeah. No, definitely it was made in Scandinavia, or most surely it was made in Scandinavia, and probably because of the whole historical context as well, but also because of the style. It relates to some pieces that are usually connected to the Danish royalty, and most concretely the Kamin and the Bamberg caskets. And
Mm-hmm.
these are two of also the most popular Viking Age pieces of art. They are also two caskets made in Antwerp, uh, and they are decorated in a very similar style than this box.
Mm-hmm.
And they are usually, these two boxes are interpreted as presents that some Danish king sent to one was in Poland because it disappeared during the Second World War, the coming casket, and the other one was sent to Germany, to Bamberg. And they are, of course, we don't know also who was sending them, but it was they were sent and they were made at a moment when Denmark was becoming Christian and accepting Christianity as the official religion, also by initiative of the king of Harald Bluetooth and the descendants of that came after him. So it is all linked in this historical scene where on the one side we have these very internationally oriented royals in Denmark, like Harald Bluetooth, but also I can also name, for example, Canute the Great, which was
Mm-hmm.
the grandson, I think, if I don't remember wrong, um, that were very much preoccupied with linking with other European kingship and monarchs. So they were sending these presents to the churches and to the kings to try to conciliate with them and make alliances and so forth.
Okay. So I guess, and then that means that I say we, but you think that this box is sent there as a gift as opposed to at some point a Viking raider dropping it.
Yeah, that has been proposed, like because we do know that there is many sources mentioning the attacks in the coast of Spain, Viking attacks.
Hmm.
And of course, the first guess when this box was rediscovered in the 90s was that, yeah, perhaps a Viking dropped it in a beach and somebody found it, you know. But
Yeah.
it is very hard that this happens, you know. How does it reach then to Leon? Leon is 150 kilometers away from the sea.
Okay.
And you have to cross a very high mountain range. It's not easy. It's not easy to for a Viking to reach there. So
Hmm.
it has been suggested. It was also suggested that perhaps one of the very early Scandinavian pilgrims going to Santiago dropped it there because the famous pilgrimage way to Santiago de Compostela goes through the city as well. But this is also very difficult and very hard. So the most simple scenario that we can think about when we have in account the whole international scene, but also the national scene with the Kings of Leon as well, uh, having their own interest as well in getting support for their own battle against the Muslims with other royals from Europe, was to think that this was perhaps one of these signs of goodwill and gift exchange between kings in Europe.
Hmm. So if this was a gift to the kings of Leon, what would be the purpose? Well, as in, 'cause it's a long way from Scandinavia. What would be the kind of the point of it, I guess?
I wish I could tell you, but
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you. There is really nothing we can say for sure here. We have, as I say, documents in other parts of Europe, church documents and letters preserved from this period as well. That where we find, for example, King Canute. Canute. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce the Scandinavian not version.
It's okay, don't worry.
Canute the Great sending presents to, for example, to Chartres and to France and Rome and so forth.
Hmm.
And we have letters of for example, the Bishop of Chartres answering back to Canute and expressing how surprised they were that he was sending beautiful presents to the cathedral because they thought he was a pagan king and they never imagined that he was able to be so pious.
Okay.
So
Okay. So it's likely to win favor,
yeah,
and I.
so they were just really trying to show that they were a European king. You know, they were European kings and they
Mhm.
were also leading to the church. And
Yeah, it does make sense because if you're the new person at the party, which essentially that's kind of what they are. Um, they're newly converted. They're new to this Christianity
mm-hmm.
thing that you kind of want to impress. You want to show what you can offer and gain favor from those who are powerful, not only to kind of for your own benefit, I guess, for trade links and for protection, but also just as a little bit of a show, I guess, as well. You want to show what you can create and what you have at your disposal.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And there
Wonderful.
is where, yeah, where it becomes really interesting because you have this also this image, and of course, the first thing that comes to the mind is, yeah, the Vikings, and the Vikings were all pagans, and they burned the churches, and they stole all the things, but they were actually, especially towards the end of the Viking Age, we find all these things also, like them trying to integrate and yeah, especially I guess the monarchs because they really wanted to also have support for their kingdom building and and so forth.
Mm. Okay, before we get into the artwork itself and what we can tell from the images, you said that, did you say that you think that it came to Leon in 1100-ish, or
Yeah,
but it was
yeah,
possibly made in the 950s ish.
circa year 1000. That's the date I put was made circa year 1000. The leads were added a little bit later, not so far away, because by the style we can tell it was still Ringerike style in the leads, and that means that they had to be made before the 1030
Hmm.
and set in the box. So that's the stages of construction of the box. But then it could have arrived to Spain, we don't know when, and definitely period after that.
Yeah, well,
But
I
but
get.
we can tell it wasn't long in circulation or being used or so forth, because it's not very wasted. It's not very, you can really see this it doesn't have many wear marks of use.
Mhm.
So it shouldn't be so far from 1030 that it arrived.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering. I was wondering whether it seemed as though this was a present made especially to be sent as a gift, or whether this was something that was made earlier that was then maybe used or belonged to somebody of power that kind of, I guess, grown its own special sentimentality that they thought, well, this is an amazing thing. Let's send it because it's something that we appreciate and hold
Yeah.
high.
Hmm. I think it was more like the second. It was probably in use for some time and being something else, and then they decided to send it for some reason.
Mm-hmm. So,
And
at what point do we think that it became a box or a container of sorts?
my guess is that it was when they added the leads, then it became the box we know today. So the
Mm-hmm.
1030, most not far away from that date, it arrived to Spain being already a box. So
Okay, so it right, I'm with you. So, it was possibly some sort of staff adornment prior or something maybe like that. Like it looks like a ring, almost like it could be a beard ring type shape is what it reminds me of.
yeah,
Um, but it's likely that it existed as a cylindrical, open-ended piece of antler, and then by the time it's sent to Leon, it's been made into a box.
yes, yes,
Okay,
that's my guess.
right.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm with you. I'm with you. Obviously, well, it is all kind of guesses and uh,
yeah.
doing your best to put things together. Um, oh, that's interesting. So that means that it's been. Oh, I'm trying to kind of think myself of what it could have been prior, because it must have been. It's obviously taken so much work to create, and the without even looking at what the artwork means, and I've done enough of these episodes to know that the artwork that is on there will not be on there just randomly because they liked the image. There will be some meaning behind it, and it will have something more to it. So the fact that this thing was made and then made into a box before it was sent, then I would love to know what its past life was and what it kind of did before.
Yeah, we can only dream and guess about that. There is
Mm-hmm.
something very interesting, for example, in the iconography of the box that I also try to link with Nordic mythology. And there is some ways in which we could also give it some iconographical meaning, even though one should always see all these interpretations about iconography with caution, because we always wish to find meaningful images, right? And to find
Mm-hmm.
that things have sense. But this is, of course, very difficult to know exactly why they were made, the way they were made in the first
Okay.
place. But I like to see it. If you have the extended design that I sent you,
I do, yeah. And I think that's a great point that sometimes if you're looking for a connection, you'll maybe find it even though it was maybe not intended in the first place.
Yeah,
But also, you've got to do it because otherwise you may overlook something that was
yeah.
intended. It's a real hard kind of place to be in when you can't ask the person who made it.
But also, I have to say that that happens today. We look at things and we find a meaning, but that has also happened throughout history. And this is
Mm-hmm.
another interesting thing it has been written about is that looking at these art objects is not that they were making them and this was the meaning they should have and everyone should know that this thing represents this thing. They were also very playful with, especially with this kind of decorations when the more you look at them, the more things you find.
Mm-hmm.
They were also used to inspire other things and other motives. Like, for example, it is said that with some of the brooches of the Viking Age, where we see all these interlacing images that transform into things, if you look at
Mm-hmm.
them, they were also used for composing poetry, for example.
Okay.
And it just makes a lot of sense. This is something we see in other cultures of the period as well, like the Muslim cultures and the Christian cultures. They were using visual references for not for transmitting an idea, but also to create new ideas, new poetry, and new things.
Mm-hmm.
So this might the box might have been also used as that. We see there is this very intricate design, and the more you look at it, the more you're gonna find.
Mm-hmm.
There is
So j- just before we jumped into the to that, I guess that's a flattened out image of the box. So it's
yeah.
for again for anybody listening, I would advise you kind of just pop over to the YouTube and you can see the visuals. But if you can't, it is a cylindrical object, and the image is basically it's been split at one side and then opened up and flattened out, so you can see the artwork flat. But before I did want to ask you about this sort of head piece. So it's cylindrical apart from at the top where the lid is, there is a little piece that it looks like a beast head that kind of sticks out from the cylinder, almost, I guess, maybe a third of the diameter. And yeah, I wondered why you think that is even there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why it's even there? Because it is it links very much with the kind of aesthetics that we see in the Viking Age art of this time. Maybe if you have been looking into Thor's hammers, for example,
Mm-hmm.
we see that that small protrusion in the cylinder looks very much like some of the Thor's hammers we find in Sigtuna, for example, in Sweden. So
Okay.
this is a Viking aesthetics.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Maybe,
then what?
sorry, I was gonna say maybe it's to give importance to that beast because it seems like from the flattened out one that we're going to show in a second, it looks like that beast is the main one of all
Mhm.
the other ones. Maybe it is just to give kind of that significance to that highlight. This is almost where it starts.
Yes, yes, that is where it starts. Is the one that you can spot more easily.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you want, I can go into the detail of what I see there.
Yes, yes, please. So this is the flattened out version.
Yes. So
So
there is
sorry, no, go ahead. There's the beast here in the middle that we can see.
yeah the beast there in the middle. And now after you have seen it from the profile, we see it from the front. We can see it has a sort of beak.
Mm-hmm.
It is the most easy way of spotting animals in Viking Age animal art is by trying to find the eyes. And once you
Yeah.
find the eye, you try to find the rest of the body. So
Mm-hmm.
there we see these very bumpy eyes,
Yeah.
and that is where we start. And then we see that below there is a sort of beak or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, right?
I'm gonna flick between the two so people can see it kind of from above and from the side because it is very beak like, even with this kind
Yeah,
of turn and the detail on that. To say again, just to remember, this is only 4 centimeters tall, which is astonishing the detail on this tiny, tiny little item.
Mhm.
So yeah, sorry, please carry on.
Yeah, well, there we see the beak there, and then we if we look in what would be the top of the head of this bird, I'm gonna call it bird to make our lives easier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we see there is other two eyes in both sides, like going from here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you've highlighted them on the picture as well.
Yeah, so you see them there, and there you see them much better, and they also
Mm-hmm.
have a sort of beak or some sort of curly mouth, also very very typical from Viking art aesthetic. They
Mm-hmm.
have this beast always with this curly snouts and so forth. It's
Yeah.
easy. It is very hard to tell what sort of animals they are, but we can see that there is some sort of snake-like figures or serpentine
Right.
creatures.
Okay. This is giving me questions that I'm going to save till we finish talking about the artwork that I've got from when I had another guest on who told us about a box and artwork and birds and snakes. So I'm going to save that.
Okay, good.
um,
Um,
no, please go, carry on.
so there we are counting now. We have three beasts for now. We have the bird and we have the two other in the side. And then around the cylinder, we find other five eyes. But
Mm-hmm.
again, they are all these serpentine creatures. You see the snout, but you don't see anything else. You don't know what sort of creature these are. So perhaps snakes. What they
Yeah.
were really trying to highlight here is, as you say, the main beast, and we see it because of the spirals. This is also a very traditional way of representing it in Viking art. The joints of the animals were
Mm-hmm.
represented with spirals. So we spot the eyes, and then we spot the spirals, and there we have joints.
Yeah.
And here we have four joints.
Mm-hmm.
That then, if we look at the ones in the center, they from the spirals there is like this triple triangles that spring and they cross and they make these arches. And by comparing it with other examples again of Viking art, we can see that this is a way of representing wings in birds.
Mm-hmm.
These are wings or
Yeah.
feathers. And then the other two spirals, we can see that they are like legs with a claw in at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and some sort of pattern or a dotted panel there that looks like scales.
Yeah.
So this would be perhaps a way of representing a bird, or that's
Mm.
as far as we can tell, perhaps an eagle, perhaps something else. We cannot really tell. It's something with two legs and wings, so a bird,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps.
Yeah, the is it the Kamen casket that has the bird on with
Yeah,
the very obvious kind of wings that really do stand out and are very kind of
yes,
obvious.
exactly. It's the coming casket. We can see it, and by watching at the coming casket, where the birds are much clearer, and
Mm-hmm.
then watching at this is where we make sense of this as a bird.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you think the that bird is representing?
Well, hard to tell. I think it makes reference to different things. I think, and it's not only the bird alone; it's the whole program in the cylinder because this is a full program. There is seven snakes or serpentine creatures,
Mm-hmm.
like tangling all together with this um, bird-like figure into a, and this is a very important element that is not so easy to spot at the beginning. They are represented into a deer antler, and that counts as well. That's another animal in the box. It's a deer.
Okay.
And now if we go back to uh, medieval sources and medieval mythologies, if you like, not only Scandinavian mythologies, but also European mythologies, we find that snakes, stags or deers, and birds, and most concretely eagles, are very much connected into this animal mythology that we also see in the bestiaries, in the medieval bestiaries and in the early medieval bestiaries. And we also find in the Eddas, we find these animals also very much connected. As for example, it's in the Voluspa where where the description, the Volva is describing the wall, how it is organized along this axis of Yggdrasil. And what we find in the top of the tree, there is a bird, an eagle, and we also find a deer. And from the drops of this deer called Eikthirnir, from the antler of this deer drops dew that waters the roots of the tree. And it waters most concretely one of the roots, which is Niflheim. The root, I don't remember the name of the root, but it goes down to the well of Niflheim. And there is where the snake dragon Nidhoggur lives.
Yeah.
And this Nidhoggur is the one that is making the tree suffer and biting the roots, but it's also the one that is very much in conflict with the eagle at the top of the tree. And they are exchanging these evil messages with the help of the squirrel Ratatosk.
That's so fascinating. I never thought, because it is the eagle and the snake are the very top.
Yeah.
And the very bottom.
At the very bottom, and then there is the stag watering, and then there is these animals are all connected, and then you might be wondering then why 7 snakes? Because in one of the stanzas of the Voluspa, there is actually a description of the other 7 snakes that live together with Nidhoggur in the well of Niflheim. So
would that not make it 8 snakes then?
Yeah, well, if we count Nidhoggur, it would be 8. But Nidhoggur is not a normal snake; it has wings. It flies.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That is something for anybody listening that hasn't listened to the older episodes that we've done on dragons and such forth. There is a big confusion between the word dragon and worm, and a lot of Norse mythology dragons in quotation marks aren't necessarily what people might think of. They're more of a serpentine style beast.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and they were using the term indistinctly to orm to name snakes and dragons and worms. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So is that why you sent me this picture that I pulled up? And I'm not, because I know I kind of jumped the gun and pulled this one up because I know that you sent it me before, and it's one that we've discussed on here a few times. You start talking about snakes and stags. Now I ascribe to the idea that this is a stag and snake. Now I know not everybody does, and I wondered whether you did too. And I may have just assumed by the way that you were talking that. And for anybody again that's just listening, this is the stone from the Yelling Stone, the side of the image that looks to me like a stag with a snake wrapped around it. It's pretty iconic.
That's exactly why I brought this here, because this is I don't know, I guess some of you are familiar with it, maybe you are not. This is the Yelling Stone too, and it was made in 550 something, 950 something, and is the one that proclaims the Christianization of Denmark. It was put there by Harald Bluetooth and dedicated to his parents, and is decorated in 2 sides. but this side in concrete has this image of a beast, four-legged beast,
Hmm.
with a snake around the neck. Traditionally, art historians and archaeologists have interpreted this as a lion
Yeah.
or some sort of quadruped fighting a snake, and this is an allegory of Christianity beating paganism and so forth. But I think it's something more than that. Is actually, if you look at the head of this quadruped, it has antlers.
I think they're antlers. I do think that they are.
And for me, they are very evident antlers. They have also discussed it when I have brought this forward. They have also told me that yeah, no, but that's how in the Middle Ages they were represented, the mane of a lion. I'm
Hmm.
not so sure. To me, if we look other stacks in the Middle Ages, they kind of look like this sort of hybrid creature as well. But the antlers are always put there very much purposefully. And if
Hmm.
we link this also with the iconography or the meaning of this fight of the stag and the snake in a Christian context and in the bestiary context, this was very
Hmm.
much an allegorism for baptism, which in the context of the Yellowstone makes a very much more sense than um, the battle against paganism or what were the other interpretations of it.
Hmm. Yeah, I was just trying to pull up a, 'cause there is like a really nice colored in um version of the, so you can see this the snake, but I guess that's not gonna, I couldn't find one. You know what? I'm gonna be somewhat uh I'm gonna advertise my own work here because I feel like I've got a good picture of this from the horn that I carved to show it. Because I think that this is a stag, and it was my old co-host Matthias Nordvig that originally like brought said this to me, and I was like, yeah, it does. It really does look like a stag. But I guess other than this, you don't see too many examples of stags in Norse mythology, though.
Not in texts, in Norse texts per se, but you find them in other contemporary texts from Christianity that were all throughout. They were distributed all throughout Europe, like the Physiologus, for example, or they were also used as rhetoric. Like this battle of the stag and the snake was also very much used as a rhetoric thing in church context, in psalms and so forth, to to refer to that um, to that baptism reference.
Hmm.
We find them, for example, in Bede the Venerable text. He was also using this uh, allegory of the stag and the snake, and also Cassiodorus. So we find it all throughout early medieval Europe in
Hmm.
text, not in Nordic mythology, if you like. Only this very succinct reference, if you want us to see it as that, into the poetic Edda
Hmm.
in the tree of the wall as opposites.
Yeah. So yeah, I just pulled this picture and you can kind of see a little bit more clear the the shape of the antler up there, and
Yeah,
I think it's very antler-like.
yeah,
It is. I'm going with that. Um. So, but obviously on the box, the it's made from deer antler. It shows the bird and the snake. Now, am I right in thinking, is it the coming casket that also around the sides has like a bird or eagle chicken like thing that
yes.
kind of eats or kills the bird in like like a story around it that's kind of like
Hmm.
fighting. I'm trying to remember the exact thing, but
Yeah,
is it kind of like killing the snakes as it goes around?
it's the same thing. Yeah, we find the same animals as well in the coming casket. Not only the birds and the snakes and this battle. There is also stags, much more evident, I think, stags because they are again they have been called lions because they have these antlers that
Mm-hmm.
they want to see as manes, but to me they look like stags. And they were relating them with they were saying that they were lions because the lion is a symbol for monarchy uh, in Europe.
Okay, yeah.
But we shouldn't forget that also the stags are a symbol for monarchy,
Mm-hmm.
and that also links to the Christian idea.
Mm-hmm. So the actual bird itself, the the bird is obviously the prominent animal on this, and the snakes are kind of the ones that are around and fill up the gaps in between. Is that because the bird, I guess, would be the hunter of the snakes? It's kind of the predator.
Yeah, according to the physiologus, eagles and yeah, specifically eagles, they are also enemies with the stags, and this is the physiologus bestiarii, right? And for some reason, they are enemies with the stags and also snakes.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is they go down and the eagles they hunt snakes and then they throw them into the stags, the antler stags for some reason.
Okay.
So that's another of the links. This is the physiologus. Uh, this physiologus text is a very, very popular text in late antiquity, and it was distributed as they say that it was probably as popular as the Bible. So in places where the Bible was known, probably also these animal legends were also known from the physiologus.
Mm-hmm. So, do you think this was made because obviously it was it was made prior to sending it down to Leon? Do you think it was made post Christianization or pre Christianization? Because I guess it's around that kind of time.
Yeah.
If is it possible that it was made before?
Well, it was made in this time where they were just about or just became Christians officially from the kingship. So it is right in this transition period,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we actually find that it is also in this time where they were kings like Nut. They were using they had scouts composing poetry for him, using both all this Old Norse mythology for the stanzas, for comparing him with Thor and so forth, but they were using them side by side with Christian motives as well. So
Mm-hmm.
they were mixing it all together, no matter what. So this also fits very well with this box. It is not that it was made Christian or it was made pagan. No, it was made in this time where everything was together and
Okay.
used here and there.
Yeah, I think that's probably something that we maybe cling on to or focus on too much in modern times of this split between Christianity and pagan as if it was like a click of the fingers and you're one or the other because obviously there was some forced Christianization, but there was also a lot of voluntary Christianization. So I think that we have this idea that it's just pagan and Christian, that's it. And in reality, there was this time where things were kind of both, and people were both, and it probably took generations of change to go
Yeah,
from being one or the other. You can't just kind of snap your fingers and then make everyone change, which is really fascinating. But what I was thinking was if it was sent as a gift, as a kind of like, here we are, we're now Christian, like we want to be friends. I would have thought it would be quite a Christianized piece to kind
Hmm.
of show that we're now this way.
Yeah, it was probably that. It was also probably a way for them of interpreting Christianity on their own way. Um, so because you find these motives that work both for paganism and for Christianity, so this was probably one of these fluid imageries that
Hmm.
they could use. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Okay, so it is Christmas in 2 days, is it? Jeez, I just looked and it's the 23rd. I've been working so hard. I need to go and get things sorted. But it's Christmas in 2 days, and it's no coincidence that we tried to book this in Christmas. So, what do we think was in the little box, or what can you theorize that may have been kept inside? Because you said before that it was found in the church and it was amongst other relics. Now, for people who don't know, relics are the the bones or parts of martyrs or saints,
Hmm.
which is something I never knew. I thought relic was just like an old cool thing. I never realized that it was actually like the part of a saint or a martyr. So yeah, what do we think was in this little box?
Yeah, well, with relics, they were very, very creative. It could be, as you say, parts of humans, but it could also be just anything that human touched in life and in death that was
Oh, okay.
imbued with this power that they had. And it could also be relics, it could also be all these sort of souvenirs coming from sacred places. So, yeah, one of the surprises that I stumbled upon when doing the research about this little box for my master, and that's why I always say you should never underestimate your master research. Take it as
Hmm.
it was your biggest work because you never know where it leads. But this thing I found already 10 years ago um, was that checking one of the very early publications about this box in Spanish. It was a publication talking about the general treasury of San Isidoro, of the church. And I was hoping to find something more about the box. And what I found is that this publication contained a translation or a transcription of an inventory written in the 16th century,
Hmm.
describing very much in detail every little box that there is in the church and the sort of relics it contained and how did he know that the relics, these were the relics and so forth. And well, in this description, yeah, it is, as I say, very detailed, and many of the things described here are no longer found in the church. They have disappeared. But there is a description of a little box made in Antwerp with intricate design and
Hmm.
two lids made out of brass. It says,
Okay.
and this is the only of the hundreds of boxes described there. Not maybe not hundreds, but many boxes described there is the only one that fits that looks like the box in
Hmm.
uh, the Scandinavian box. No other description says the lids made out of brass or intricate design, a little
Hmm.
box.
Yeah.
So this
How,
was
how
probably
many how many antler boxes were there?
not many.
Okay.
There is ivory boxes,
Yeah.
but not antler. And this one is very specific when mentioning bone, because he probably didn't knew it was antler, so he was just went for bone. But when it's ivory, they say it's ivory.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's a good point because when I just looking at the photos you sent, I would have just guessed it was bone. I would have just gone, yes, it's bone. I would never have known
Yeah, no,
antler just from
you
looking
need
at it.
to know how antler looks inside, and sometimes it's very difficult to know if you don't do a analysis on the material to know if it's actually antler or just bone. But this one you can really tell is antler
Okay.
by the marks. But yeah, if I continue with the inventory, so there is this description of this box that is very much like this one, but it goes more than describing the box. It says that inside there is a small tag that says Reliquiae de Sepulcro Beato Nicolau, which means relics of the sepulchre of Nicolau.
Yeah.
So
As in Saint Nicholas?
that's it, as in Saint Nicholas, relics of the sepulchre of Nicholas. So
And we all know who Saint Nicholas is at this time of year.
yeah, I hope you do.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully.
Coming.
I have not. Yeah, he is. But only if you've been good.
Yeah.
Uh, so what is the when you say relic of Saint Nicholas, like what would it have been? Does it say what it is?
Yeah, this could be several things in this time period. The relics of the sepulchre of Saint Nicholas, who was originally buried in Mira in Turkey. They were this uh, this odorous substance, this perfume that was coming out of the sepulchre, and it was
What
called
what
me
what's a sepulchre?
a sepulchre. The tomb,
The what? Sorry,
the tomb.
the stomach.
No,
Oh, the
the grave.
tomb. The tomb. Oh,
Tomb, grave
I thought you
sepulchre.
said tum, as in like tum tum. I don't know, like a tummy. I'm so sorry. A
Does
tomb.
it actually exist, sepulchre in English, or have I invented that word?
Um, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
it's probably some word that I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, it does exist. I was so adamant. Then I'm like, nope, doesn't exist. Not at all. But yeah,
Okay.
it is an English word. I just am not the
Yeah.
smartest. I'm
No,
sorry.
I do that very often. I take a Spanish word and I say it as it would sound in English, but it actually doesn't exist many times. But I'm happy that this one exists.
No, this was all me. That's my fault.
Okay.
So okay, so the smells and the perfumes from the tomb, not the tum.
Yeah. And this was the kind of relic that they were taking from the sepulchre when it was in Mira in Turkey. But uh, the city fell under the control of the Turks somewhere in the 10th century. I can't remember. I don't know exactly when. But because of this, in the 11th century, a group of Normans went to Mira and took the body of the bishop, because he was a bishop of Saint Nicholas, and transferred it to the south of Italy, to Bari.
Okay.
And again, this links again with this very interesting time period where there is all this gift exchange and all that. This is the 11th century. So it could also be a relic which was literally a body part. Could also well be.
Have to be a
Uh,
small body part to go in there.
yeah, could also be. We know by written sources that they had body parts of Saint Nicholas of Myra in Germany, for example, at the beginning of the 11th century. If I'm not wrong, this was in the Cathedral of or the Church of Mainz. We know that they
Oh,
had a finger of Saint Nicholas there.
oh, isn't that so fascinating that you get a saint and he dies, and you would you'd assume that the utmost respect to bury them, but also they're kind of like, let me just have like a finger. Let me let me have a finger so I can take it back because this is going to be, really cool for everybody. Everyone's going to want to come and look at this and touch it, and it's going to give us blessings. Let me just bury the body, but let me take a finger.
Yeah, yeah, and it was like that. It was for veneration, but also for claiming the sacred power of that saint,
Hmm.
because relics were also very necessary, for example, to consecrate churches, to make them official, right? Officially
Hmm.
sacred. So they would have wanted to have these very powerful saints in their control. And we actually see that the relics of Saint Nicholas, especially, were also very popular in the 10th and 11th century in Germany, and very early as well, as soon as the Scandinavia became Christian. Also in Scandinavia, like in, for example, there is in the 1070 already, there is a church in Aarhus dedicated to Saint Nicholas.
Oh.
And it was very important back then because he was the patron of the seafarers. So this was very
Mhm.
much down the alley of the Vikings, right?
Okay, so I was thinking that okay, this was my train of thought was that the box was made and sent to Leon, and then the part of St. Nicholas was taken, where there was a finger or whatever small part, was taken in like a tissue or a napkin up to Leon and then put inside the box. But it seems as though it's possible that the relic or whatever piece was maybe taken to let's say Denmark was where this box was made, was taken to Denmark and then from Denmark already containing the relic, then down to there, which
Mhm.
I guess would make it an even more significant present.
Yeah, it would have made it more significant. Yeah, and also very much something practiced uh by that time, like giving relics was something very much appreciated.
How on earth would you ever know? There must be so many fake relics around. Because if I was a king, I was like gonna send the relic of Saint Nicholas or whoever, Saint Cuthbert. I'm gonna like, look, like whoever my second in command is. I'm like, give me a finger.
Yeah,
Let me come on, come on. Like, let me take a finger. We're gonna it's worth it. Don't worry. And we're just gonna send it off. Like they'll never know. There's no way to ever check, and we're just gonna pretend. So there must be like 20 Saint Nicholas fingers out there somewhere.
yeah. No, of course. Yeah, you have to imagine. And also there was also all these places where they were getting the relics from. They were places of pilgrimage, so there was people going there by the thousands looking for these relics. So you have to imagine this black market of
Oh yeah.
relics when you as soon as you arrive to these cities and
Mhm. Oh
getting
yeah.
anything that you would want uh,
Yeah,
sacred.
that's a good point because people don't change. And if there's a market for it, there's a market for it. So if people are coming to a sacred site and you can convince them that this little not in this case, but like you've gone on pilgrimage to wherever and there's a guy outside saying, buy this little container, it has the hair of the relic or any part, you're gonna be like, yeah, go on then. Go on.
Yeah.
And there's no way to verify it, is there? So you just have to kind of hope they're a reputable seller. But
Hmm.
I assume they don't have Trustpilot back then.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah, what an interesting thing of like the relic trade.
it is really interesting. Yeah. So
So,
yeah, it's a possibility. They might have been put inside before arriving to Spain, but it's also very likely that they were put once they were in Spain. So you never know that. We
mhm.
we just can guess.
It feels if it was a gift and it would be a gift of some sort of significance that it likely would have had it in before. In my opinion, anyway, it seems as though if I was going to send a gift, as lovely as that little box is, it's significantly more valuable if it's got the relic
Mhm.
of, a very
Yeah,
popular saint
definitely.
inside it. So it feels like it probably would have had it in before, but obviously, I don't know.
Yeah.
So what happened to the relic? Do we have any? Because I assume it's not in there now. Otherwise, we could say that
No,
it's in there. It wouldn't have taken you find it in a long lost.
it was lost. We don't really know. It just disappeared. It also happened with the other boxes in the treasury. Many of them are empty, and this is
That's also
partially.
interesting, isn't it? Like, how do you lose a relic?
Yeah,
That's
well, in this case, there is a very good reason, and is that during uh, the Napoleonic times, the French came into the church and they just burned it and
oh,
broke a lot of
okay, yeah.
things in there. So the church was very much messed during the Napoleonic invasion in Spain.
And I assume the relics would have been moved.
Could have been then, could have been before that. There is no record for the box
Hmm.
before. Only this one in the 16th century, and nothing
Yeah.
up until the beginning of the 20th century.
Hmm. So in yeah, so that's a good point because in Durham Cathedral there is a like wooden casket for Saint Cuthbert that they carried their relics from Lindisfarne when obviously the Vikings attacked Lindisfarne. The relics were taken from Lindisfarne to Durham Cathedral to keep them safe. That was the one thing that they wanted to protect. So yeah, that's kind of the first thing that they want to save, which is, or I
Yeah.
guess, unusual by today's standard because you would put high value on the gold, the silver, the gems, that kind of thing, whereas it was clearly on the religious items.
Mm-hmm. It was material, of course. It was importantly valued, but also the sacred component, the religious, like the sacred power of all these relics was even more sometimes
Mm-hmm.
much more important than gold or silver. And this is, you find that example, as you say, in the Lindisfarne, but it's also found especially in Spain, where we come back to the Reconquista time, where it's also all these early Christianity places in the south of Spain are under domain of the Muslims. So the Christian kingdoms in the north are also all the time constantly claiming all these relics also from the Muslim territories. And this also links with it is the same dynamic that what happens with the relics of Saint Nicholas at the same time, because Mira fell under the control of the Turks, and they claim these relics from them and translate them, move them to to safer places to the south of Italy and throughout Europe.
Mm-hmm.
This yeah
How interesting because it's something where I can kind of detach from today. This religion is kind of it's changing, I guess. Not as many people are religious, not many people are as Christian, and that idea of having a relic and that being the most valuable thing, then you have to take that with you, probably life or death. You will lay your life down to try and get this relic from you know if it's a place of being invaded, you're going to want to take that from there to safety, and you will be willing to die for it. And it's such an interesting concept that we're probably a little bit unfamiliar with today.
yeah yeah. It was well. It depends all a bit how devotious you are, but
Hmm.
yeah, it was like that. Mm,
I wonder how many people would. I'm so, so I wish that I could just have like a little helmet that would take me back and I could just look at all these times because there must have been a time where a relic was being transported and it was swapped. Like they had the relic of somebody in a box, and because that if you're willing to transport that and risk taking that is clearly of high importance to you. So there must have been a time where somebody was like,
mm.
we've got the finger of St. Nicholas in here, and there's nobody around. Let's just swap it. I'm gonna take that finger and let's just put somebody else's finger in there. They'll never know. Let's just do it. And then they just
Yeah,
take it. That must have happened.
that must have happened thousands of times, I guess,
Yeah.
throughout history.
And then just and but but I guess the power is in the belief. So it's
Yeah,
kind of inconsequential whose finger is in there. It's the belief that it is the
is the
the
belief.
sins.
Hmm. And sometimes it didn't even need to be the real thing. You could, for example, also just take a piece of cloth and just put it over the tomb, the sepulcher,
Hmm.
and that would have already become something sacred
Oh,
because it was
that's the real scam,
transferred,
isn't it?
that superpower was transferred to that piece of cloth, and that was already a relic again. So,
Because
but of course, the most powerful things were the bones of
mhm.
the saints.
Yeah, but if because, like I say again, people don't change, so there must have been people who took advantage of this, and just like you get and anybody who's ever met anybody famous is at like a signing, there's always somebody who has 10 books because they want them all signing to go and resell them online after. So there must be that guy at the tomb who has like 20 handkerchiefs and he's waving them all over and he's like, I'm going to sell these all to whoever's going to buy them after. That must have happened, and that's such like a human thing. And I love thinking about these little experiences that must have happened, and it's like, people are just people. They're all going to hustle and try and sell things and do the best.
Yeah,
Wow, how interesting. Let's wrap this up and then we will let people ask you some questions quickly. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for teaching me about this wonderful little container that, like I say, I embarrassedly hadn't even heard of before we booked this. And it is such an interesting little thing. The detail on it is fantastic. Where can people find you? Do you have an academia or do you have, well, I know you have a public Instagram. So if you want to shout that out and let people know where that is.
yeah. Well, my publications are listed in academia.edu, and
Mhm.
you just have to, I guess, Google my name and you'll get it pretty, I hope. And if not, just look for me in academia.edu. Um, and then I also have a public Instagram, which is not only about Viking things, it's also a lot about, yeah, landscapes and things I like of the places I live and I visit, mainly Norway. That is where I live now. And this is within the north. It's called my Instagram. So everything together, all together within the north.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Um, and for me, it's Daniel underscore Farrand one. For the business, Horns of Odin, and then it's just the podcast is Nordic Mythology podcast across the board, whatever platform. I do implore you to go and check out our YouTube page. It is Nordic Mythology podcast on YouTube. You get to see all our pretty faces when we make the episode, but a lot of the time there are visual elements to this which do just help along with the episodes, whether it's this one with pictures of the box or with Paul Mortimer where he's holding up the different weaponry that he's had made in the replicas. There are those visual elements that do make it a lot more engaging, a little bit more fun. So go and check that out. Hit the like, subscribe, and the little bell button. And I think that is it. Rebecca, thank you very much. I hope you have a lovely Christmas.
Thank you so much for inviting me here. It's been a real pleasure and I really had a lot of fun. I mean, I love
Wonderful.
to talk about this box if it's not everything. Thank
Wonderful.
you so much.
Thank you very much.